There is a moment we all know too well. A careless word, a stray glance, a situation that defies your expectations. Before reason can intervene, the body claims its dominion. Your heart quickens, your chest tightens, a sharp word escapes, a hasty decision is forged. It all happens with such velocity that you only witness the wreckage once the storm is past. We call this emotion. In truth, it is reflex. It is a reflex carved from old habits, unhealed fears, and forgotten wounds. It does not ask for your consent. It simply drags you along. Many lives have been diverted, not by fate, but by a single moment where choice was absent. But the Stoics understood a fundamental truth. Between the impression and the action, there exists a space. That space is narrow. Sometimes it is no more than a single breath, a deliberate pause, a second of silence. Yet within that void lies the boundary between the slave to impulse and the master of will. This journey does not begin by commanding the external world. It begins the moment you sense the rising tide of reaction, and you dare to stop. You dare to defy the familiar. You dare to choose otherwise. If you seek to reclaim that moment, the moment that decides whether you are the master or the subject, stay with Stoic Journey. For true freedom is not found in avoiding the collisions of life, but in the power to choose how we respond. 1. You are fighting the wrong battle. As you enter this first chapter, imagine yourself in the depths of the night. There is no audience, no noise, only you and your soul. Tears fall in silence, whispering, "Give up." Fear shrieks, "Flee." Desire intrudes, promising that if you only grasp at something, anything, you will find peace. Yet, beneath this cacophony, there resides another voice. It does not rush. It does not panic. It does not argue. It simply is. And it says, stand firm. Think. Trust. This voice is not loud. It does not seek to overwhelm your emotions, but it is unwavering. In the stillness of the mind, it presents a choice that no one else can make for you. Will you be led by your passions, or will you be governed by your reason? Will you submit to the internal chaos, or will you choose the clarity of a disciplined mind? Now, more than ever, we are shaped by how we feel rather than what we know. A careless scroll through a screen is enough to stir a tempest in your chest. You weigh your life against polished illusions, and peace slips through your fingers unnoticed. You feel overwhelmed, and you mistake that feeling for the truth. You feel inadequate, and you believe that is who you are. Pause. Truly, pause. Ask yourself, what if your emotions are lying to you? The Stoic sages looked directly at this reality long ago. They understood that the true battlefield is not out there, not in your circumstances nor in other people. It is within your own mind. There, every thought can either be a foothold to keep you standing or a blade that cuts you down. The moment you realize this, the moment you name the battlefield correctly, is the moment the real war begins. Not to conquer the world, but to reclaim the sovereignty of yourself. 2. To find peace, hold the helm. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, power resides not in external events, but within your mind. Realize this and you cease to be a victim of circumstance. You discover strength in the very place you once neglected. Life does not flow in the direction of your feelings, but in the direction of your thoughts. The tragedy is that most of us devote so little care to the very place that determines our course. We spend hours refining our appearance, editing images, and arranging our homes to ensure everything looks fine. Yet the mind remains cluttered, fragile, and exposed to the slightest friction. Then we wonder why peace eludes us, why a single word, a glance, or a minor delay is enough to trigger an internal collapse. It is not because the world is too harsh. It is because the helm is no longer in your hands. Emotions were never meant to be a compass. They rise and fall, ebb and flow. They react swiftly, but they do not reason. They are signals, not maps. If you allow them to lead, you will move incessantly yet never arrive. Only a disciplined mind, tempered in clarity and alertness, possesses the strength to keep your course true to its aim. Where the mind is untrained, chaos reigns. The enemy of your life does not need to destroy you instantly. He only needs to keep your thoughts clouded. For when thought is muddled, emotion takes the throne. When emotion rules, your choices weaken. And when choices weaken, your life begins to drift by momentum, no longer guided by intent. To restore reason to the helm is not to deny emotion. It is an act of leadership. It is understanding that while emotion has a right to speak, it has no right to command. It is choosing clarity even when the storm rages within. The moment you achieve this, the moment reason grasps the wheel, your life ceases to drift. It begins to pivot, not with noise, not with vanity, but with steadfastness. From that point on, peace is no longer something you seek. It is something you create by the very way you think. 3. Forge discipline before the siege. Most people only seek discipline when everything is spiraled out of control, when emotions have already shattered, when a crisis becomes too great to ignore. But in that hour, the very thing they need most, internal steadfastness, is the hardest to build. You must stop coddling your emotions as if they were royalty. You must cease waiting for the days you feel right to begin. Instead, start constructing your mindset like a sentry guarding a city, fortifying the gates day and night, inspecting every stone, testing every weakness. Be diligent. Be decisive. Do not let weariness lower your guard. A fortress is not built during the storm. It is built in the quiet days when no one is watching, when there is no applause and no recognition. This is where many abandon the path. They wait for the feeling of readiness. They wait for motivation. They wait for a clear signal that now is the right time. But this journey is not measured by feeling. It is measured by choice. The choice to sit with your mind when it is in chaos. The choice to maintain discipline when no one is supervising. The choice to forge, layer by layer, an invisible armor that the world will never see. If you wish to go further on this path, one step at a time, one stone each day, subscribe to Stoic Journey now. Not merely to follow a channel, but to make a covenant with yourself that you will not bypass this silent training. For there will come a day when the true storm arrives. And in that moment, you will not need to pray for strength. You will simply stand firm, because the fortress was finished long ago, in silence, through discipline, and by the choices that no one but you ever witnessed. 4. Recognizing illusions to reclaim the truth. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." This is not a phrase for comfort. It is a warning. Most of the pain humanity carries does not stem from events themselves, but from the narratives we weave around them. Without internal discipline, we easily mistake these illusions for the truth. A fleeting thought solidifies into a belief. An uneasy feeling becomes a verdict on your self-worth. An unhealed memory turns into a distorted lens through which you view the entire world. You begin to react to what might happen rather than what is happening. You call this state reality, when it is merely a rising tide within your own mind. Without discipline, illusion holds power. It amplifies fear into catastrophe. It transforms a hurdle into a dead end. It whispers that you are far weaker than you truly are. But with training, this changes. You begin to see clearly, not because the world has become less harsh, but because your mind is no longer reacting blindly. You distinguish between what is fact and what is merely an emotion attempting to seize command. As clarity returns, your response becomes slower, yet more precise. You no longer rush to fight back. You no longer panic at false signals. You respond with equanimity. In that stillness, you move forward with purpose, rather than being dragged by nameless fears. You cannot control the waves, but you can learn to navigate. The vital question is not whether the sea is calm, but whether you still believe that every wave you feel is the truth. The moment you realize that not every thought is trustworthy and not every emotion demands obedience, is the moment you return to the truth. And from that truth, strength is reborn. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, but it is firm enough that no storm can ever deceive you again. 5. Choosing response over reflex. There is a thin boundary that most people never notice, the line between reflex and response. Reflex is immediate, thoughtless, and devoid of choice. Response is different. It requires a pause. And that single moment of pause determines whether you are the master of your life or merely its subject. When someone insults you, reflex demands retaliation. When things shatter, reflex invites panic. When abandoned, reflex pleads to cling or to shut the door in rage. But the Stoics understood that true freedom is not found in the absence of stimuli, but in the power to choose our response. It is not the event itself that harms you. It is that the space between the event and your reaction has been neglected for too long. Epictetus taught us that it is not things themselves that disturb us, but the principles and notions we form concerning them. What he implies is this: you always possess a moment of choice, however fleeting. He who masters that moment can no longer be pulled like a puppet by the strings of fate. To choose a response does not mean you no longer feel. On the contrary, you feel with clarity. You recognize the anger. You acknowledge the rising fear. You see the insecurity attempting to seize your mind. But instead of letting them automate your actions, you take a step back. You breathe. You observe. And you ask, if I act upon this emotion, what will be the price? This is where true strength emerges. It is not a loud strength. It is not a victory of words. It is the power of the one who cannot be dragged away, the one who feels no need to prove anything, the one who refuses to let a moment of weakness dismantle years of discipline. When you learn to choose your response over living by reflex, you begin to live slower, but with greater stability, with less drama, but with more precision. Eventually, you will realize the world no longer sways you so easily, not because the world has become gentler, but because you are no longer a creature of momentum. This is the freedom that only those who journey deep into Stoicism can truly touch. If there is one thing you must carry away from this journey, let it be this fundamental truth: the power to choose your response belongs solely to you, not to your circumstances, not to other people, not to the emotions that surge in moments of vulnerability. Life will continue to test you. People will continue to disappoint you, but no one can dominate your thoughts unless you surrender that power to them. The very moment you pause before the reflex, that is where inner sovereignty begins. Training the mind is not about becoming unfeeling. It is about creating enough stillness between stimulus and action. That stillness is where freedom resides. It is the sanctuary where you no longer lose yourself to a momentary flash of anger or a fleeting shadow of fear. When you learn to choose your response over living by reflex, you do not need to win every confrontation. You only need to ensure you do not lose to yourself. If these words resonate with you, write one word in the comments: discipline. Not to prove anything to the world, but to remind yourself that clarity is forged through small, repeated choices made every single day. If you wish to walk this path further, subscribe to Stoic Journey. Do it not to support a channel, but to make a covenant with yourself. From this day forward, you will pause before you react, think before you act, and hold the helm steady, even when the storm rages within. The world may remain in chaos, but you will not. That is not luck. That is discipline. And that is the Stoic journey.